darlings, Mimi G here with the fourth part of our sew along. Now last week we attached our fly front zipper, and today we're going to attach front to back at our inseams, our side seams, do some top stitching, and attach our waistband. Let's get started. Okay, grab both your backs, and with right sides facing, we're going to pin and stitch along the crotch. Make sure that you align your 3 notches and that you align your stitching. Now we're going to sew using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Go ahead and finish your raw edge. Okay, now I want you to go ahead and press your seam allowance to the left. So it's facing this way. And we're going to top stitch. So we're going to do 2 rows of top stitching. You're going to top stitch close to your seam line, and then again a 1/4 inch away from your seam line. And then we have on our front the top stitching that we did along the edge, and then you're going to also top stitch a 1/4 inch away. Top stitch close to the edge. And now we're going to do that again. Now go ahead and create the 2nd row of stitching on your center front. Okay, once you've got your top stitching done on both your front and your back, go ahead and place them right sides facing, and we're going to pin our inseam. Match your seam lines and pin. Match the notches that are on your pant legs. And then continue pinning all the way down. And you're going to pin both pant legs at the inseam the same way. And now we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to start at the crotch, and we're going to work down one leg, and then we'll start back up at the crotch and work the other way. Make sure to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And you're going to do the other pant leg the same way. Okay, now that we have our inseams sewn, I want you to press your seam allowance so that they are facing the front, okay? And we're going to top stitch all the way around the edge of your inseam. Along that seam line, we're going to top stitch. Now starting at the end of one pant leg, I'm going to top stitch close to the edge, all the way through my pant leg, through the crotch, and down the other leg. Okay, once you're done with your top stitching, you're going to go ahead and pin together right sides facing your side seams, and now we're going to stitch them using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now a quick tip, if you just want to make sure that they're going to fit, go ahead and baste your stitches first and then try them on, make sure that they fit. And if you need to take them in a little bit more or out a little bit more, this would be the time to do it before you stitch using a normal length stitch. Back stitch and sew. Now do the other pant leg the same way and then finish off your seam allowance. Okay, once you've tried them on and you have finished sewing them together, then we're going to go ahead and do some top stitching along the side seam. We're going to start at the top and then we're going to stitch until we get to the end of the pocket. You can feel for that on the inside and pin it or make a mark. And then we're going to create a bar tag. Okay, now with your seam allowance facing the back of your pants, we're going to stitch close to the edge. Make sure you're not catching anything underneath. Now I'm going to move up and I'm going to switch to a narrow zigzag stitch. And create that bar tag. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now you should have 4 pieces for your waistband. You should have your interfaced pieces and your non-interfaced pieces. So I want you to go ahead and grab your interfaced pieces and make sure that you are pinning your notches and that they are matched up. And we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now once you've sewn your center back together, go ahead and press your seam open. And we're going to pin it to our pants. With right sides facing, go ahead and align your center back seam on both your waistband and your pants, and then continue pinning. Your band should extend beyond the end of your pants. Once we're done pinning, we're going to stitch all the way around our waistband using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay, once you finish attaching your waistband, go ahead and stitch down your center back seam on your facing of the waistband, and then you're going to pin at the top and you're going to stitch it using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'll see you back here after that. Because I went ahead and pinned my waistband facing to my waistband, and we're going to stitch all the way around using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and understitch the facing. So with your seam allowance facing your facing, you're going to stitch about 2 inches from the edge along the very edge of your seam line here. And you're going to stop about 2 inches from the end. Now before we go back to the table, I'm going to have you do a row of stay stitching on your facing 5/8 of an inch away from the edge, because that's where we're going to press and turn under. No need to backstitch. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is on the facing, we're going to press, turn and press under along that stitching line we just did, that stay stitching line. Just fold along your stitching and press. And now we're going to go ahead and close this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch close to the edge of our pants, taking up that seam allowance that we left there. And then we're going to turn this under and top stitch our waistband. Okay, now we're gonna close this off. You're gonna do the same thing to the other side and then trim off your corner. Okay, once you've done that, poke out your corners, trim that inside so that you don't have any bulk along that waistband or at the tip of your waistband, and then fold it over and press. And now we're going to pin our waistband on the right side because we're going to do some top stitching. Just make sure it's nice and flat, and then pin. Now we're going to go to the machine and we're going to top stitch a 1/4 inch away from the seam line, and then up the sides, and then a 1/4 inch away from the very top. Now top stitch all the way around your waistband. Now pivot and continue sewing around your waistband. Alright guys, next week we finish up. I hope you've enjoyed this process so far. I'll see you next week. Peace.